Welcome, everybody, to episode 64 of Comic DNA, X Edition number 7, on which my good buddy Alex Harner and I are discussing the classic Stan Lee and Jack Kirby X-Men issues. Now we are on issue number 7, The Return of the Blob. What a shocker.
Heck yeah. We knew he was going to be back at some point.
Yeah. The blurb on the cover says, The Surprise of the Year.
I'll be honest, I wasn't that surprised.
Wasn't that surprised, yeah.
Or enthused, but I mean...
You know, the Blob issue number 3, I think has kind of been like our punching bag when we complain about how some of these issues are not great. And that was one that we didn't like a whole lot.
Yeah, a low point.
And then also, at this point, we've also been getting a little bored with just the continual... Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, like villain of it's no longer villain of the week. It's just like each week Magneto has a new plan that's stupid and it fails, and then the X-Men beat him and then he runs away.
Yeah. And
this issue looks like it's just going to be more of all of the stuff that we don't like so far, right?
It does, and I dare say it is.
Well, we don't have to quite get there just yet.
All right, I'm jumping ahead.
But yeah, the cover to this issue did not fill me with hope.
Yeah.
Return of the Blob, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants are back.
I mean, I did, given how poorly the Blob issue ended, I was kind of looking forward to him getting his memories back and maybe some closure, some healing.
Seeing if there's going to be any
or a rematch,
continuation of the story. It just left with Professor X just mind wiping all of them, Blob and the circus, and them just going back to their miserable lives as carnies.
It's carnies. Carnies have a strong presence in this issue as well.
They do. So, you have to remind me, Alex, whose turn is it to do the plot synopsis? Is it yours?
I think it's my turn.
I think it's yours. So
I might be mixing it up, but yeah.
Before we, because I did the last issue with Namor. It's been a few weeks. We took a little break. Things happen. I did an episode with my buddy Chris. We had a little creator hangout. But now we're back.
I need to listen to that one.
Yeah, I mean you've listened to me ramble on about stuff, so it's probably nothing that you haven't heard. Just complaining about J.J. Abrams and Joss Whedon and
J.J. Abrams,
Deadpool cosplayers and stuff like that.
It's just a list of things that make Aaron angry.
But we talk about good things that we like too.
That's good. That's good. It's good to celebrate the things that you like.
I would actually say it's more important.
I think so.
It's really easy to complain about things, but it's more important to be able to state eloquently why something is good.
I agree. It's a better code to live by.
So, let's try our best to state eloquently why this issue is good. I challenge you.
Okay.
But let's start, before we get into it any more than we already have, why don't you hit me with a plot synopsis?
A little plot synopsis. Okay, I'm going to dig deep here. So the issue opens with the X-Men having a little photo shoot for their graduation. Again, it's not entirely clear what their graduation means. But it's kind of a milestone, I guess, and Professor X is going to be going away. And he's having one of the X-Men basically take his place as leader while he's gone. It's not really explained where he's going, but basically he trusts them to do to follow through on their mission without him being in charge of every little bit of it. So he announces he's leaving. We cut to those dastardly evil mutants. And they're being jerks again, and none of them like each other, as has been established in every issue so far. Mastermind's making a pass at Scarlet Witch, and she thinks he's repulsive, and he's pretty much...
He is repulsive.
Yeah, he's pretty one-dimensionally repulsive.
Yeah. He's a total creep.
He's even got the kind of greasy hair mustache thing going on.
Yeah.
He's
kind
of a gross guy.
He's a real like Snidely Whiplash, just like
Yeah.
He's like what you picture when you picture the villain.
Yeah, absolutely. He has this like old timey cloak too, which just makes him even more of a creep. But
he's a villain out of like a silent era film,
Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked.
Yeah, that's true.
We cut to the evil mutants. What's established here? That Mastermind's a creep. Magneto doesn't like him. He kind of smacks him around. And we're reminded once again that the Scarlet Witch isn't really evil, but she owes Magneto a debt.
Mm-hmm.
And her brother's there because he's just looking out for her. But they all hate each other. And we're kind of getting to the broken record point. Nothing new here. We cut back to the X-Men. Professor Xavier makes Cyclops the leader, and he introduces Cerebro, which is this is the first appearance of Cerebro.
First appearance?
Which is cool. It's his mutant finding device. Kind of some cool Kirby art, and this big kind of techie panel. It's cool to see.
Yeah.
Man, I'm struggling here. So Xavier leaves. Cyclops is the new leader. The X-kids are going out, but Cyclops stays behind to do leader things. The X-Men, minus Cyclops, go to a beatnik bar or a coffee shop.
Yeah.
But before that gets fleshed out, we hop back to Magneto, who's at a carnival looking for the Blob. Actually, he stumbles upon the Blob and decides he's going to recruit him. In the process of recruiting him, there's a Cardi throwdown.
Yeah.
Which...
Because we loved that the last time we saw it.
It's ridiculous, and yeah, we've seen it before. It's kind of a rehashing of something that's already happened a few times. But the Carney battle cry is pretty great. We'll go into that.
Yeah, we will, yeah.
Long story short, Magneto recruits the Blob.
Yeah.
Cyclops, using Cerebro, discovers that the Blob has been recruited. He summons the X-Men, who, again, are at this beatnik coffee house, which is pretty great. We can talk about that scene. But he summons them, and then they go to fight.
Yeah.
And they fight. And Magneto's a jerk, and rather than keep the Blob on his team, he, like he's done a few times before,
like every time before,
puts one of his henchmen in harm's way, because the only thing he cares about is conquering the world. And in putting the Blob in harm's way, the Blob realizes, wait a second, Magneto's not a nice guy. He's actually a huge jerk who was willing to kill me. And that's the end. I guess the X-Men make another offer for the Blob to join.
They do.
And he says no, and it's actually pretty melancholy and sad.
Yeah.
He kind of wanders off, kind of just feeling alone, and he's going to return to the circus because it's the only thing that's ever made sense. And then that's the end.
So, yeah. First impressions, I'm going to launch into this right away, and then I'm going to hear what you think. Number one, oh my god, I was not interested in this story. It was like what we were saying. It was everything that I didn't care about. I didn't want to see more of the Blob. I didn't want to see more of Magneto with a stupid plan. I didn't want to see Magneto run away the minute the X-Men not even foiled his plan, just showed it like an ounce of resistance, and then he's like, oh, screw it, we're out of here. But I have to say, I kind of like the ending. And when I mean the ending, I mean like the actual ending. The whole ending of the Blob kind of like stopping Magneto and the Blob just telling everybody to leave him alone, and he's just going to go, like you said, the melancholy ending. I appreciate this, that there are these characters in the X-Men that kind of break from this good and evil mold that has been established with like the X-Men are the good and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants are evil.
Mm-hmm.
And you have all these characters that kind of like reject that. And I mean, we saw this. I mean, I'm talking about how much I like it, even though it is still a rehash of what we saw in the previous issue with Namor, where Namor was like, "No, I don't want to have anything to do with either of you." It was literally the same plot. Magneto was trying to get Namor to join him. Namor eventually got to a breaking point where he decided he didn't like Namor, and then Magneto was just going to let Namor die, and then like it was the whole thing. Like Magneto's willing to sacrifice somebody, you know, even though it's just bad. So I can appreciate that Blob has his characterization has more sense than characters like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, who have seen Magneto attempt to murder his compatriots multiple times now.
Multiple times now.
And they still just have a debt to him. I mean,
when is that debt repaid?
Right.
How is this debt even defined?
Right, exactly.
Really vague.
It's not
mopey.
Great. It was like perfectly established in their first appearance, where you got the impression that Scarlet Witch didn't really know Magneto, but she, you know, he saved her, so she was willing to go along with it. But then and then at the end of the issue, she starts to question him. Okay, fine, right? And then you can do more stories where she sees more about him, and then she realizes kind of where she's at, and she has to make a decision. It's like she keeps seeing where things are, but then she never follows through on making a decision. They're in the previous issues, she's openly rebelled against him, and then then they're just back.
Right. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't. It's not strong.
I can't create or read depth in any of it. It's kind of just shallow, simple storytelling, and kind of disappointing at this point.
Yeah. One thing I thought of was how one of our complaints about the previous issue, the Namor issue, which we did not think was that great, despite having really good-looking art, which I guess I should mention that again here, is that Chick Stone is back as the inker.
I saw that.
And it's a good-looking issue.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part. I do think that the lines are really sharp. This is like there's some close-ups of Magneto that look really nice. I think I just really like Chick Stone's inking on Jack Kirby. He looks great. But like our complaint with the previous issue was that it felt just kind of like a filler. Like there was kind of nothing, like no point to it. It was just we got time to kill, so let's just have Namor show up because, you know, we want to cross-pollinate our Marvel books. This issue, it almost reinforces that.
Yeah.
Because this issue picks up directly after issue 5, not issue 6. With the whole, like, issue 5 ended with the whole, congratulations, you're now graduated. This was all a test. I'm so proud of you, my students, from Professor X.
That's a good point.
And this issue picks up immediately with the graduation ceremony. And issue 5, or issue 6, like, there's no, like, nothing to tie it to the continuity. I will give the series, like, one thing that is interesting about the series, and this was a thing that Stan Lee was really insistent on in the comics that they were doing at the time, was that they all progressed, like, with, like, a natural continuity. So, like, each issue led to the next one, and it felt like all the characters were growing up and aging. And this was a major conflict between Stan Lee and Steve Ditko over Spider-Man, because Ditko thought Spider-Man should stay a teenager forever, and he should just be like Mickey Mouse. And you can argue that that's a valid point, considering all of the trouble that Marvel has had over the last 30 years trying to get rid of the Spider-Man marriage. You know.
Sure.
So, but whatever. But Stan Lee wanted him to grow up. He wanted him to graduate high school and go to college and, you know, do all this stuff. Because I will give him credit, that is compelling storytelling. That's different than you see in every other comic. You know, Batman has been Batman for, you know, decades upon decades at this point.
Sure.
Same thing
well,
with
in
Superman.
theory, it allows for the characters to grow and change. I mean, not just physically grow, but like they learn things.
Exactly.
which you don't get with Mickey Mouse.
And that is what makes it more sophisticated storytelling, which is what drew like an older audience to the Marvel books in the 60s. Even though they were for kids, they were getting attention from older adults, not just teenagers, but I know that was always the thing. Like college kids were reading it and talking about how impressive. It's not just dumb comics for kids. Like there's a little bit of sophisticated writing going on here. And you can see that the way the characters age and progress, it's different than what you consider standard pop media. And this issue follows through with that. But then it makes the previous issue 6, stand really out as having really no place, because it's not like there's no continuity moments in it at all. I don't know.
Interesting.
That's just something I noticed.
Yeah, it's funny that 5 ended with the graduation, kind of forgot about it, and now we're back at it.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily contradict anything.
Right,
I mean,
right.
It could have been a few weeks before they actually got this photograph together and had their full ceremony.
Yeah.
But I agree. It's kind of strange that it skipped an issue.
And then on top of that, the plot is basically the same as this issue. Magneto tries to get somebody to join him. At first, they do join him. Then they decide they don't like Magneto, and so then they leave. But they don't join the X-Men either because they don't like the X-Men. That's like beat for beat the plot. Both issues are the same. The only thing I'll say is that Namor is probably a bit more compelling of a character than Blob.
I mean, the way he's depicted, yes. But I feel like
Blob has more purpose in the story, like with the just the world, the X-Men universe.
I actually feel like there's a lot of potential in Blob, but it's not really followed up on.
Yeah, I agree. I can see that.
Like, I mean, they're both. Namor's more fantastic. He's more over the top. He's more badass. So, of the two, Namor's the more exciting comic book character. But like, there's some sadness with Blob and some pathos.
Absolutely.
It's not really followed up on, but or it's only like lightly touched upon. But I had Stan Lee met more interested in presenting that, it could have been more compelling.
Yeah, I agree. The Blob was you could maybe say he's like one of the first characters in the X-Men universe whose mutant ability is also a physical deformity.
He's not just a cool kid or
with a superpower.
Right. He's kind of a freak.
Yeah, and that's why he works at a freak show. So yeah, I agree. There's some pathos there with that.
It's an interesting. So this issue, like, it's not bad in terms of storytelling. At least I didn't think so. It's just bland. Yeah, and we've seen it all before. It's much more coherent than the first Blob story.
Yeah, I agree. I almost feel like
it doesn't make me wince when I'm like, that's a really stupid development that doesn't make sense.
I almost feel like this could have just been the Blob story.
Yeah.
You didn't really need the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what kind of gets me, or what I felt reading this issue, was that the formula is showing. And it's just all of a sudden it's a lot less fun because it's just hitting beats that have already been established. It feels much more like a Mickey Mouse story. It's just, these are the characters, this is what they do, it's the same as it was last time. We'll see where the next issues go, but this is the first issue where I was like, okay, I can see why this got canceled.
Yeah.
I could see why this didn't maintain itself, because we're kind of past the quirky weirdness and the initial excitement of a compelling premise, where we're kind of into the
you can already see basically. You can already see wheels spinning. And here we are in issue 7. I say you could probably see them spinning a few issues earlier even. And Yeah. So, I guess there's still like maybe a few specific plot elements we could talk about. But
Sure.
before we do that, I've been thinking a lot about this because I knew your reaction would be similar to mine. Just general indifference, maybe boredom with it. The excitement has worn off, and we've both complained in previous episodes by now how we're kind of sick of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and the one-dimensional characterizations, which started out in like their first appearance as having a little bit of depth to it, and now it starts to feel stale. So one of the things that I did, we are on issue 7 of the X-Men. I went back and looked at the first 7 issues of the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and the Avengers.
Okay.
I forgot to write down the Avengers, but I did look at them. But for the purpose of just this discussion, let's talk about like the two top books at Marvel, Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. Now, Fantastic Four is a team book, like the X-Men. Spider-Man is a single character book. The only reason I bring that up is because I don't want to just say that Kirby's not creating enough characters per issue with the X-Men because it's a team book. So there's once he established the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, we're talking about like an aggregate of 6 X-Men and 5. Like we're talking about 11 to 12 characters that are like that's a lot of characters to constantly be appearing in the book. Versus like Spider-Man, where you just have Spider-Man and a villain every issue, right? So, but the reason I bring this up is because I went back and looked, and Spider-Man introduced a new character in every issue. So the first issue was the Chameleon, the second issue was the Vulture and the Tinkerer. There were 2 different stories. The first 2 issues of Spider-Man were like split like 2 12-page stories.
Okay.
The third issue featured Dr. Octopus. The 4th issue featured the Sandman. The 5th issue featured Doctor Doom crossing over from Fantastic Four. The 6th issue featured the Lizard, and the 7th issue featured the Vulture. So, like, classic Spider-Man characters. Like, with the exception of Venom, like, I mean, this is a different discussion, but I would say with the exception of Venom, Steve Ditko created all of the important Spider-Man villains, his whole villain roster, and, like, the most important characters all appeared within the first 7 issues, you could say. Sandman, the Lizard, Vulture, Dr. Octopus. I mean, except for Green Goblin, that's pretty much all the characters that we've seen in the movies. And of course, I already said except for Venom, of course. But so there's that. So it's Spider-Man, and then each issue there's a new villain. But like I said, that's a single character with a single villain. So Fantastic Four, which is basically like the important Marvel book, the book that started it all, the book that rocketed Marvel into the position that they are. The first issue featured the villain, the Mole Man. The second issue featured the Skrulls. The third issue featured a character called Miracle Man, who is not the Miracle Man character that Jack Kirby went on to create for DC as part of like his Fourth World cast of characters.
Mr. Miracle.
Yeah, Mr. Miracle.
Right.
Sorry, yeah. Okay. No, is he Miracle Man? I thought he was. I don't know.
I think he's Mr. Miracle.
I feel really embarrassed that I can't conclusively say one way or the other.
The point is, Jack Kirby has created multiple Miracle characters.
A billion characters, and a couple of them are Miracle related.
Yeah.
Fourth issue of Fantastic Four brings back Namor. That's his first appearance in like the Marvel books, brought back from the Golden Age. The fifth issue is Doctor Doom. The sixth issue is a Namor Doctor Doom team up. And then the seventh issue is a new character called Kurgo, Master of Planet X. And it's just like a sci-fi story about an alien. The point I'm making here is that all of these issues like feature something new. It's the team or the main character dealing with something new. And the X-Men really fall short of that, I think.
Yeah.
Because we saw the X-Men, the first issue was Magneto. Okay, that was good. The second issue was the forgettable Vanisher. But at least he was like a new villain, but it was, not great. The third issue was the Blob. Okay, so we're on like the villain of the week formula there. then the 4th issue brings in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and that's continued into the 5th issue. So that feels appropriate. Like, you bring in a big team, you introduce 4 new characters along with Magneto, and you have it be a large 2-issue story.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still pretty much okay with that. And then the 6th issue feels like the filler, where it's like, it doesn't feel part of continuity. The Brotherhood of Evil Mutants just try to recruit Namor just because. And then the 7th issue is the same thing again. The Brotherhood of Evil Mutants try to recruit Blob just because.
Mm-hmm.
It feels really stale.
I agree. That's
really my that's really
probably
my
the best word to sum it up. It feels really stale.
And I guess the only reason I'm kind of going off on this is because we've talked a little bit before about, how appropriate it is to hold these comics for 10-year-olds in 1964 to our sophisticated 21st century adult literature standards.
Sophisticated.
Yes, I'm very sophisticated.
Yes. No, I follow what you're saying.
But I think it's completely justified to say that it's really stale, because Fantastic Four was not stale. Fantastic Four was exciting compared to Fantastic Four, but using the same measures compared to Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, X-Men is dull and spinning wheels. I mean, we're not even seeing. Well, I guess what's getting me is that we're not even seeing anything new with the characters. You have this large cast of characters, and I would be okay with constantly seeing the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants if each issue focused maybe a little bit more on like a different character. So we saw Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in their first appearance, and that sort of established them as they have a debt to Magneto, but they don't really know if they trust him or agree with him, but they're going to follow through with their responsibility. And then the next time you see them, you focus a little bit on Toad's story, which they almost did, but then didn't. And then the next time, maybe get a little bit more of like why Mastermind is there. But that's really not what's going on. It's just really one-dimensional characterizations. Magneto comes up with a stupid plan, and it's really it is embarrassingly like Saturday morning cartoon Scooby-Doo style. I'm going to take over the world, but I can't do that with those accursed X-Men around, so I need to come up with a million different plans to kill the X-Men, and then once that's done, I can get around to ruling the world.
Right. And he somehow always invites them to the fight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's boring.
Yeah, it's boring, exactly. And I don't feel wrong in saying that when compared to, as I said, the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man comics, which were produced years before these X-Men comics were produced. Like this feels like Jack Kirby is stretched thin, because he's drawing Fantastic Four at the same time as, and I should say drawing and writing Fantastic Four at the same time that he's drawing and writing the X-Men. And it certainly feels like his backup book that he's not too terribly interested in.
I get that. Definitely.
That would be my estimation of this book. And I can see why it took somebody like Chris Claremont and Len Wein and Dave Cockrum and John Byrne to really turn it into the powerhouse that it eventually became.
It's funny because the foundation is there.
Yeah.
They're just not they're not pushing it. They're not doing anything with it.
Right.
It feels like it's the last. I mean, the past few issues anyway seem like they're the last comics to be taken care of on Kirby and Stan Lee's list of priorities.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, even talking about the Foundation, this issue features Cerebro. The first appearance of Cerebro, which is a foundation of the X-Men. It's something that's lasted through the ages. Like we talked about in those previous issues that had Asteroid M, and we're seeing all the cool stuff for the first time is exciting, and I like it. And this issue has that. It has Cerebro, but it's just like a small part of it. It doesn't. It starts to feel. I'm just going to keep going back to it. Stale. Magneto is stale. New villains. Put something new in there. If you're not going to do anything with the villains that you have, give me some new villains. And
either the villain needs to do something new, or you need a new villain.
Right, exactly. and having Magneto try to get the Blob is just the most, like, I really could not care less. Except I do kind of appreciate when Magneto tries to get the Blob to join him, and Blob's like resistant to it, and Blob starts wrestling him.
That was pretty good little panel.
That's a great panel.
He's
Blob.
like, "You're making fun of me. I'm gonna put you in a headlock."
He puts him in like a hold. I'm not a wrestling term guy, but
I don't know. Is that a suplex?
No, it's not.
No, it's not. What is this? I don't even know.
So embarrassing that you don't know that. There are lots of wrestling fans that read comic books. But yeah, that's a good panel of Magneto like freaking out that Blob is grabbing him and subduing him.
Yeah. It's not like a terrible issue. It's just stale.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I liked the most about it, and the thing I wish they were doing more other than giving us new villains or giving Magneto a likable plan.
Right.
The thing I liked most about the issue was when the X-Men, apart from Cyclops, go to the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Because that's characterization.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we're learning something new about them. Like,
right, and that was kind of fun.
Iceman's got his eyes on this girl, and Beast is kind of a square.
Yeah.
And that was like the however many 2 pages, 3 pages.
Yeah, just a couple of pages.
I was like, I'm getting interested. I'm not feeling as sleepy reading this comic.
Yeah.
And then it ends, and it's just back to the cliche stuff from the past couple issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not much to say about it.
I liked that stuff too, because that's when they're in the coffee shop, because that starts to feel like classic superhero tropes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Iceman's been kind of flirting with his waitress, and he wants to ask her out. And just as he's like about to do it and seal the deal, they get called back, and they got to go do superhero stuff. That's classic superhero melodrama.
Sure. But we're actually getting some more story for Iceman.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just the Joker. Now we have like something else to learn about him, to look forward to. Like, how will this develop?
Yeah.
This book needs more of that it's lacking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's because I can't even necessarily say that the book is like too crowded with characters, because it's not necessarily too crowded with characters, because we keep seeing the same characters do the same things over and over again.
Right. There are a lot of wordy panels that tell us nothing.
Yeah.
It's just like Stan Lee is just writing words, but it's like, again, bickering between Scarlet Witch and the Evil Mutants, or it's just like, we got it. We don't need like multiple speech bubbles reinforcing this when you've given us multiple issues already. A few words is good. A few sentences is fine. So yeah, whether or not it's crowded with characters, it's crowded with superfluous dialogue that means the characters don't get any time.
Yeah.
In a way that's interesting. So
I really just don't have much else to say about this issue other than that.
Yeah. That's cool.
Just kind of dull.
Any favorite panels?
That's what I was gonna say. Favorite panel? I might have to go with Blob putting Magneto in that wrestling hold.
I did chuckle at that one.
Yeah.
The two that grab my attention are the crazy jazz thing that's going on.
I was just about to bring that up.
Because that it kind of ties it to an era.
It does.
And it's a big panel.
And this is obviously
some time into that.
Yeah, these are obviously referenced characters. I guess that's one thing we didn't really talk about, is that these the coffee shop Hepcats.
Mm-hmm.
These are referenced characters. I forgot to research. I forgot to research to see who they are. Like this panel where everybody's freaking out about Beast's big shoes. And you see like the the artist that wants to draw them, and then there's
Sure.
the guy with the big mustache and the coffee mug. And they mentioned Bernard. Wait till Bernard sees them; he'll write a new poem immediately. I'm sorry. Who's the famous poet named Bernard? Yeah, I know. I meant to research this to find out who we were actually looking at, but I didn't. So Bernard Shaw. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know.
I know that name.
It's really not super important. Yeah, but the point is, I agree with you. This is a nice looking page because it's, like you said, it ties it to an era. It's pretty referenced. The jazz band looks good. They're actually playing real instruments, and all the goofy Greenwich Village weirdos. They all look like characters, interesting characters. They're all like the whole thing about how they like turn Beast into their they like create a cult around Beast.
Like his weirdness is like
his weirdness.
They rally behind it.
They rally behind his weirdness. They like that he's weird, and it works. And it's part of the time. If the X-Men are supposed to be weird, they're mutants. They look a little strange. They're going to find a home in Greenwich Village, which is the counterculture capital of the world at that time.
Right.
Except it works really well with Beast, the character Beast, because he's not necessarily a countercultural guy, even though he's the most weird looking of all the X-Men. And so you get a little bit of fun there. The characters kind of, again, that's the fun characterization of those characters.
It's the best part of the issue.
It's the best part of the issue, hands down, yeah.
It reminds you too, again, that thing that makes the X-Men compelling is that they are kind of socially relevant. They're tied into a moment that was, the 60s that was a big deal. Unfortunately, it's a relatively small part of the issue.
It's a real small, like you said,
it's basically a page and a half.
Page and a half, yeah, not even 2 full pages.
A page and 2/3. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also was the other panel that jumped out at me was at the top of 17, just because Kirby breaks away from, he's still using the grid for proportions, but it's a very dynamic panel where it just jumps out at you.
No, that is a good panel, and it actually makes Magneto look pretty badass, like a little boss.
Shoot.
Like he's actually powerful. Like he can just control all these missiles and just fling them.
Right.
But then that also sort of reminds me of like how tedious some of the storytelling is, because it's like Magneto's really, really powerful, and then he just still can't do anything.
Right.
He's so impotent at the same time.
How many times now has he done something kind of cool, and then it gets shut down, and then he stops trying?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like...
Because I should say, I actually
it's
do...
boring.
I start to like that sequence, because it's Magneto just flinging giant missiles at the X-Men, and you get to see some fun, creative use of their powers. That's one of the fun things about superhero comics, is that, or at least certainly sophisticated comics, is that the characters can't always just punch each other and blow things up, right? You got these giant missiles. They can't just let them explode, because not only will it kill them, but it'll destroy the whole area where they're at. How do you deal with it? So you get these fun use of their powers. I like how Iceman creates the ice wheels around the one missile and just rolls it away. And
some fun visuals.
It's some fun visuals. Cyclops uses his powers to blast a hole that Iceman falls into so that he will duck the missiles flying at him. It's fun visuals, except unfortunately it's in service to a really boring story.
The action doesn't mean much because I don't really care at this point.
Well, and it's all the stuff that we've seen in the previous issues and like more than.
Yeah.
They even stop. It's like Quicksilver starts running around and getting the best of them. How do you deal with, you got a panel of Cyclops trying to shoot him and he can't catch him. Oh, but Marvel Girl just flings him up in the air with her telekinetic powers and starts spinning him, just like she did in the previous issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not the most inspired comic I've ever read.
No, it's not. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to keep harping on it. I think I'm justified in my complaints when compared to same comics being made at the same time, which are much superior.
Mm-hmm. That's a good... I'm glad you checked that. It's a good comparison. It's good to know.
Did. It's not like the Fantastic Four just had Doctor Doom come back every week, and then he had like a new plan to best Richards, and then it failed, and then he ran away.
Right.
Even if that was like the basic...
Big and imaginative.
Yeah, exactly. It was big and imaginative. And even if that was like basically what happened, Doctor Doom would always have a plan, and then Fantastic Four would foil it, and then Doctor Doom would retreat. They didn't just do it every issue in a row. It was, they would bring him back every couple of issues, but then have new stuff in between.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's where we're at. But, I don't know. I don't even know if I can declare like a favorite panel.
Yeah.
None of it really jumps out at me. I think I'm going to go with the Blob and Magneto panel, just because there's just something about Magneto getting put in completely submissive, freaked out. I appreciate the audacity of Magneto, just how incredulous he is at everybody. Whenever they nobody knows who he is. They don't know that he's a mutant. They just think he's some weirdo in a costume. And then they'll talk to him like he's a jerk. Like, yeah, don't mess with me, jerk. And he's like, you dare speak to Magneto that way? And nobody knows who Magneto is. So they're like, yeah, of course I am. What about it? Yeah, like when they fight the Carnies, we didn't talk about that.
I don't know what to say about the Carney fight other than it's absurd. With the rallying cry, my wife is laughing overhearing this conversation. With the rallying cry, "Hey Rube!"
Hey Rube!
These hardened carnies all just start pouring out of the woodwork, ready to
lay into this Rube.
Yeah. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Briefly,
yeah.
Carney fight. Yeah. I'm gonna give the MVP to Zelda the waitress because she creates the only two panels where I wonder what's going to happen.
That's true. And I'll give her credit too for being named Zelda before the video games existed.
That's true. Yeah. Zelda, was that a cool 60s name? I'm thinking of Zelda Fitzgerald. That was
I have to assume so.
20s, 30s. Anyway,
it was probably a cool counterculture name at the time.
Yeah.
Now you can't help but think of video game dork.
Right.
But
no, it was well, I actually have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm going to assume it was artsy and unique.
Just going to guess.
So,
yeah. Just going to guess. Yeah.
I'm going to make sweeping claims about history that I have no understanding of.
Right. Standard comic book review.
Oh no! I think we're reaching at this point.
We are.
Maybe
I don't know.
It's time to call it.
The only thing I'll reiterate is I kind of appreciate the ennui, as the French would say, at the end of the issue.
The sadness.
The sadness. The way that Blob just kind of rejects both of them. He's
not the king of the sea. He's just a carnival sideshow act.
He's just a carny.
He's over it.
Yeah.
Poor guy. And yet, because these comics are very old, we know he'll be back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in some form. Guy. Yeah, maybe he'll eventually get sick of the carnies and find home with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Eventually, perhaps, probably.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's about it for me.
Yeah.
I can't even think of how many Cerebros out of 5. We'll say that was
Cerebros out of 5.
Cerebros out of 5.
It's not as bad as the bad characterization issue. the first Blob issue.
Yeah.
So I guess I have to give it more than that, but it's just...
Fair enough.
This is not a comic that will continue to sell if the issues keep being like this.
Right,
and
right.
I guess it didn't, so we'll see. I don't know, 2 out of 5?
2, yeah. I'll settle in at 2. Yeah, 2 Cerebros out of 5.
Yeah.
Hopefully the next issue, which I will say at least features a new character.
Okay.
So hopefully that brings something a little new, a little more interesting to the series. We shall see.
We shall see.
All right. Well, until then, I think that's going to be the end of it. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I hope we filled enough time here and entertained you talking about this book that neither of us were very excited about. But you can find more episodes of this very podcast, Comic DNA, at comicdna.podbean.com, and we are on YouTube. Just look for Comic DNA. That's our channel, Comic DNA, on YouTube. And you can find me. My name is Aaron Walther. You can find me on Twitter and on Facebook. On Twitter, I'm at AAWALTHER, at AAWalther on Twitter. And you can find comics that I have written at www.thebirdlander.com and www.newhavencomics.com. And that's about it. Alex, any final words?
I have no final words. If we have too many stale issues, we might have to break it up with a graphic novel podcast.
We might, we might have to get some, get like a Dan Clowes book review in here somewhere.
There we go. Something.
I was just at. I might cut this out of the final podcast. I was just at Memphis Comic Con the other weekend, and actually got a lot of cool comics from some really great comic creators there. Gene Ha has a graphic novel out, a book that he's been doing at Dark Horse.
New one, huh?
Yeah, new one that he's been writing and drawing.
He's an excellent artist.
I picked up Battle Pug. I don't know if you've heard much about that.
I've heard of Battle Pug.
Yeah, Battle Pug. I met Mike Norton there. I got the Manhattan Projects, book by Jonathan Hickman and artist Nick Pitara. I've been wanting to read that for a while.
I hear good things.
Yeah. And I got a graphic novel from Kyle Baker, the legend himself, Kyle Baker. I finally got around to getting his Nat Turner graphic novel. It's the book about Nat Turner, the famous slave rebellion from the American South, slavery. But anyway, maybe we'll talk about some of that if the X-Men can't pique our interest a little bit more.
I mean, we're going to get through 12, but we might have to break it up.
Yeah, we are definitely going to do the Stan Lee Jack Kirby issues, but if it keeps going like this, I don't know. But like I said, the next issue promises a new character, and the Magneto and the Brotherhood are not even on the cover, so that gives me just a little bit of hope.
Yeah. All right. See what happens.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. We will see y'all next time.